Welcome back to Legacy Builders. We are in a new series. We took a little bit of a break and now we're back. So we are in our new series, which is the parenting series. And we're going to go on our part, like through a couple of phases of life, of the child's life and of parenting and stuff like that. So basically we'll have 4 to 5 episodes where we talk about like pre-parenting, parenting young children, like parenting grade school, middle school, and then like high school ages and possibly like adults like /20s or stuff like that. Because like you always like to say, parenting never ends.
Right.
So I think, yeah, let's just start. Do you have anything else to add as far as our parenting series and what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, welcome back everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And we're excited about just getting started on a topic called parenting. And when we are talking about building legacy, we just want to communicate, to our family. We want to communicate to, as we're building legacy, I want to have episodes where those Madison, and when she is ready for parenting in 20 years, that she'll be no. That's my joke. I always say that, but
years.
Yeah,
always 20 years.
Right. But that she'll have something to go back and watch on, that we can just put our thoughts on a video, and that the generations that come after us at least can hear from our perspective on what we've experienced, the way that we chose to do things and why we chose to do them. We're not saying that our way is perfect. We're not saying our way is the right way. We're just saying that this is our way. This is our mindset. This was our philosophy doing this, and somebody can come along, and I'll even explain some other philosophies that later in life, after we've had parents or had kids, and on the topic of parenting, that like, okay, I can see where I would possibly make an adjustment here or there, and we'll talk about that. But the goal is that in building legacy, we just want people to be as prepared as possible for for their family. And so we're just going to share, and along the way, you guys just get to hear our opinion. You get to hear, someone who's a parent, and then you get to hear from Madison's side. That's the big thing, is she gets to share the good and the bad. We're going to just be transparent. We're going to be open, and just just to kind of talk about different concepts like she said, we're going to go through different phases of parenting. So we're going to start with some pre-parenting and newborn type time frames, and then we'll go to another time frame as we progress in our episodes. So we're going to break it down in a couple different age groups, and kind of talk about the significance of parenting in those areas.
And I was going to comment on too, it is a little bit unique in the fact that I also get to share on parenting and stuff like that, and what I remember, and the good and the bad and stuff like that. And so thank you for like letting me, like, thank you for being willing to hear the things that maybe didn't go so well, or willing to hear the adjustments that maybe I would make, and just stuff like that. And so it's a very unique thing. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. You're welcome. And again, it's not to say that we did everything right. You're going to hear some things that we did wrong, and be able to hopefully learn from that too. So we're not coming at this as an attitude of we had it all together and we did everything right. But we believe we did a lot of things right, and we definitely want to share those, but we want you to learn from things that we did wrong too. And Madison's going to help out with that.
Well, we might as well start there. I guess I'll share on, so we're going to start off with the pre-parenting and the like newborn phase.
Yes.
And so just like a disclaimer and stuff, I don't have a lot to say that you did wrong in these age groups, because I don't remember. I don't remember. We were just talking a little bit beforehand too. Like, I don't remember a lot of memories or things from the ages, and the age group we're going to be talking about here is about newborn to about 3. And so I really truly don't remember a lot that happened in those ages. Yeah, we were sitting here and I was really trying to come up with memories or come up with things that I could remember, and I don't. And so we'll kind of circle back to that in a second here. But Dad, I'd love to hear you always talk and have mentioned before about pre-parenting and how you actually studied for it. Can you go a little bit more in depth in the pre-parenting phase and what you studied and like the things that you learned from that?
Yeah, sure. And then that is going to be a key point what Madison just said about what she remembers. So we're going to talk about that today as we get through some of these other topics. And it's just in general on the topic of parenting. I just kind of an introduction to parenting. We're either in one of two areas. Either the couple comes together and they're preparing, they're prepared to have kids, and there's another one. It's like, well, ready or not, here they come. It was a surprise. You're going to be a parent, and there's none to say that either way is right or wrong. It's just some people plan, some people don't. Some people start to learn and learn parenting later, and so there's no right or wrong. Period. This is just our story. This is just what we did, and again, not trying to criticize anybody who didn't plan at that point, but there's hope for you if you're in that situation. You're in watching this video. Congratulations, you're starting to learn about parenting, and that's what we're just trying to. At any stage, you can make a choice to say, "Hey, I need to get this thing figured out, and we want to be there to help." And that's what this is. That's what this is all about. And so, as far as the pre-parenting thing, I just got to a point. My wife and I were married, and we're just ready to have kids. We got married, and we planned to have kids, and we wanted to study. We read books. We studied as much as we could on how to raise young children. And we talked to, even my wife and I, we'd even have conversations about, hey, what did we remember that worked, things that didn't work. And so we just had open discussion and stuff. And even to even go further back, I mean, when Jody and I first started even dating, we were even engaging in getting married, we talked about our philosophies on raising kids, on discipline, on spankings. We're 20 years old, or 22 years ago. This is a time frame that we're in. The spankings and such. We're going to talk about that a little bit here. But it was important that we talked about how we would raise kids even before we ever got married. So there's a couple books that we had gone through that had really good discussion that we would talk about, and making sure that we're on the same page, because it would get really, really frustrating if we start trying to discipline children or raise kids after the fact, and we're all of a sudden we're like, oh, I don't agree with this or with that. There would be a lot of contention between between the spouse, husband, wife, if that is if you don't talk about it. And so we would have a lot of discussions, and we would talk about how we would do certain things and kind of our mindsets. And we talk about homeschooling and all this stuff, all these different things that we would talk about ahead of time, not wait till we're in the moment to then figure out what we're going to do.
So my follow-up question to that would be, can anything really though prepare you enough to when you actually do have kids, and what that process looks like, and what you actually have to do, and the discipline and stuff like that you actually have to have for yourself and help create that for your kids?
Well, I would say that the answer would be no. The direct answer would be no. Nothing ever fully prepares you for what you're about to experience. I mean, that's just in life in general. And having kids, it's such a unique, almost a trial by error thing. But the more information that you have ahead of time, the more preparation you have, those trial and error periods aren't as much as an error, if that makes sense. So, and one of the things is, there's two schools of thought in learning. You can learn from other people, and you see how their philosophies worked out. So, like, for example, I would learn some parenting things by watching how other people parent. I would watch the kids, and I would be like, oh, those kids don't listen. But those kids over there, they listen to their parents, not just one of them, but all of them. So they seem to be a little bit more behaved. I want to go ask them, what did they do? Okay, so it'd be kind of those types of things. And you would see as kids would excel or kids would do things. Those are the people that I would want to learn how to. This is just me. I'm not saying it's the right way, but those were the people that I would want to go talk to and say, what did you do in this situation? How did you get it to your way to where your kids listen so well? I didn't want to go ask the other ones, how come your kids didn't listen so well? Right. And
It's
so
a great starter question.
right. So I would just be like, I definitely, if I had to choose one or the other, I'm going to go ask these other people because their kids seem to be more obedient. Their kids, if that's a quality that you believe in, if you want your kids to be obedient, then I would find some people who have obedient kids and listen to them. Now, does that mean you're going to implement everything 100%? No, because so I'm going to transition now into two schools of thought with that. Okay, so we learn, we're prepared. Does everything work out? No, because we have to actually implement the things that we just learned about. It's great to have information. And Madison and I have gone through many discussions about the levels of knowledge and learning, the levels of learning. So you can be ignorant. That's the number one, the first entry level, nothing. Then you have information. It's just information. It's things are all around you. You got voices everywhere that tell you this and tell you that. So now you have information. The internet's full of information, but then there's knowledge. When you take that information and you actually apply it, that's a level of knowledge, because now you actually got to see how that worked out. So there's a level of knowledge. So now what happens is you have to take this information, you have to apply it. Okay, so I'd say parenting 101, and if I had to say this, it would be a disciplined people raise disciplined children. Undisciplined people raise undisciplined children. They even have undisciplined pets. I mean, it's just the whole nature. Undisciplined people have undisciplined businesses. Disciplined people have more structure, more disciplined businesses. Are they right or wrong? It's not a matter of right or wrong. It's a matter of the results. A lot of the people who are undisciplined, they're like, well, I don't know why this isn't working. Well, this is the reason why. You need some more structure. You need some more discipline. You have to do things. So when I would discipline the kids, early on, we'd discipline the kids. I was only a one-time, you either listen or you didn't. So you get one chance. I didn't give you 3 chances. I didn't count to 10.
Is this at what ages, like newborn to 3 kind of?
Well, not so much newborn, but yes, it would be. Yeah, it would be. I mean, the 3. I mean, you've heard of the terrible 2s, right?
Yeah, 2 and 3 mainly.
Yeah. So at that point, it's the terrible 2s, but maybe we'll come back to that. But the whole point of the discipline is undisciplined people have undisciplined children, have undisciplined kids. Okay, so the second thing is to make sure we understand, it goes along with discipline, is that parenting is never convenient. Okay, so it's always going to be an inconvenience. The kids never act up when it's convenient for them to act up, right? They never throw the tantrum when it's convenient for them to throw the tantrum, when you're ready for it. They never push the boundaries when you're ready to take care of it, when they push the boundaries. It's always in the inconvenient times when you're tired, you're wore out, you're stressed, at the end of the day, whatever the case may be, out in public, and you're just not ready for it. And it's an inconvenience. And it's not to say the kids are inconvenienced. It's just to say that life happens, and we have to discipline, and we have to be able to get control of ourselves and make these decisions in those inconvenient times, because those are the critical times that helps to grow and to develop those boundaries, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think too, like with the preparation and stuff like that, like you guys were thrown a major curveball when you had a son who has special needs. And so It's like, how do you prepare for that? You really can't. You're not prepared for that. And so that's something we're going to get into in a later episode, is special needs parenting,
right?
And stuff like that. But I think that was mainly too, like, why I asked, can you be prepared? because when you're thrown like a curveball like that, or like what you said, just a life curveball, like with work and stuff like that too, and the kids act up at inconvenient times, then what do you do then?
Right. Well, and so let's talk about a little bit with the newborn. So
Okay.
you have children, and you know, there's, again, schools of thought. Not, this is not a right or wrong issue and situation, but there's it very, very tiring when you first have a baby, and the baby cries. They're just, they don't sleep through the night yet, right? And a lot of parents will understand this. And how do you get this baby to sleep, to get on a schedule? So there's books out there that my wife and I would read that would help teach how to get your newborn baby onto a schedule. Again, it requires some discipline. You have to do things that you may not feel like you want to do. Okay. And the timing isn't right. You might have to let the baby cry for a little while. It might be uncomfortable. We'll talk about that mentality here in a little bit. But there's a process. I think it's called Baby Wise. It's a book that Jody had bought, and a really great book that talked about how to right away, if you're nursing or whatever, to try to help get this baby on a schedule. And so that already starts to create a discipline in the, when we're teaching the child how to be on a schedule. If they tell you it's time to eat, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that's when you have to feed them. And so, again, it's a battle of will. So here's parenting 101. This helped me so a lot when I learned this concept early on. This really, really helped me, and hopefully this will help you too. So, and for those who don't maybe necessarily have a biblical background, please, and let me share something from a biblical perspective, and to hope this, don't tune me out. Just hear me out. So in the beginning, God said he's gonna make man in his image and likeness, and he's gonna let them have dominion on the earth. So man is already created in the image of God, and that has this DNA, this spirit of God to have dominion. Okay, so now we are married. We have this home, and we now, this is our domain. Nobody are, you in the process of getting married, husband and wife, they all have their domain. Then they get married, and you got to work it out to where now you have our domain, and we get things on the same page. Now you're going to bring a child into the equation, now into this home, your domain. Okay. And so you bring a child into this domain. Well, they're born, they're created in the image and likeness of God, and this is their DNA. So whether the child is 2 days old, it doesn't change the spirit inside that child. This child still is built to have dominion. So now there's a battle of will. So there's a battle of will that's taking place. This child says, I need this now. I want this now. And then the parents now have to decide where's the give and take in this domain. Okay. And so in our opinion, my opinion, that's where this battle happens from up to 3 years old. We start to establish this order. We start to establish these boundaries of who's the boss, of who's in charge, whose domain is it, creating this, but still trying to balance, not stifling this spirit of this new child that wants to have dominion on the earth. So we have to be able to cultivate it and direct it, but let them know that you're right now, yes, you are built to have dominion, but right now you're in our domain, and we're going to set the boundaries, and we're going to set the rules. So once I understood that, even as a newborn child, it's a battle. It's a battle of will. It's a willpower, from trying to get them to sleep on schedule and feed them, to even when I mentioned the terrible twos, or the terrific twos. Some people, no, I'm just kidding. Some people call it the terrible twos because there's a reason they labeled it the terrible twos, but there's also, we called it the terrific twos because we did not have an issue with our 2-year-olds. We took care of these things because we understood discipline. We helped set boundaries, and we established some things. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm curious to share a little bit about the emotional side of that, because I know it's very emotional for parents to, especially if it's your first kid, and you're still kind of learning what that means and what that looks like, and crying to us equals like that there's a problem, but you're trying to get them on a sleep schedule. So explain that emotional part of the parenting with like maybe not wanting to hurt the kid at that age or damage whatever might be the damaging.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and kind of a couple thoughts along those. I cannot speak on the emotion of what Jody had gone through, but I do know enough about this that, and this is where some of the, I don't want to say conflict comes in, but some of the some of the potential conflict, because now me as the dad, I have a different thought process. I have a different role. I have a different responsibility with this new child as a dad. And Jody has a different role and responsibility with this child. And so there's also this reality of like a postpartum depression. This is a thing. I mean, there's nothing negative about it. I don't experience that, but women experience this. And so there's the emotion of that's taking place within the woman that's dealing with this separation and the child that they've carried for 9 months and then delivered, and these emotions that go with it, which then translates into making emotional decisions on when to nurture this baby or take care of the baby in a nurturing standpoint, where dad over here may be thinking we got to help bring this structure or bring some balance or order. So there could be conflict in there, but we got to make sure we communicate those things. And so one of the things also that I see happen is parents will make decisions in parenting and how to raise kids based on how they were growing up and what they didn't like about their growing up. So if let's say they felt neglected through their childhood, okay, and so they felt their parents didn't give them all this attention. So now they're going to give this child attention whenever they want it, because that's where the thing that they were lacking with the relationship with their mom or dad is now the thing that they want to try to correct in this child, whether that creates the right way or the wrong way. I'm not saying it's being right or wrong. I'm just saying this is ultimately what happens. Or in another situation, let's say that their memory is abuse, where they just got spanked all the time or something bad happened. Now they're against spankings. Okay. And so we'll transition into that here in a minute. But so then that transcends into now parenting and discipline, the thing that they regretted, the thing that they had, this bad experience that they have is now, instead of learning how to make it a balanced way to do things, they're just 100% against it. And so they won't even do that. And so now that has influenced and affected the way that they're going to try to parent or raise their children based on their past experience, if that makes sense.
And do you think that like some of that reflection and stuff is important to do and should change? And
oh, absolutely. I mean, definitely want to reflect on those, but is again, if you base all of your decision on parenting based on what you liked and didn't like about how you were raised, I think that you're missing it, because there may be some things that you liked or didn't like that may not be as effective. But if you look at some of the other, just take an assessment. Look at this again. I talked about, I would look at this couple over here and how they raise their kids. Let's go talk to them. Let's go talk to this other couple. Let's go talk to this other couple. What if this couple that has kids that don't listen and they say, yeah, we're against spankings? Well, now is that really the stance you want to take? Because now you might risk. I'm not saying spankings are the way to do it. I'll explain that here in a minute. But if it's just, well, I'm not going to spank the kids, well, is that maybe you might need to revisit something like that. So let me address this concept or this topic of spankings. Okay, in my opinion, my experience, and this will go back to when early on, we, by our family members specifically, because your family sees you the most. You're around the family all the time. You go to their house for holidays and birthday parties and all this stuff. So you see all the kids and everybody's in comparison mode. Oh, their kids did this and that. And well, they should do this and you should do that. So there's all these opinions flying around. But Jody and I, we were in agreement.
Especially when you're the first ones to have kids.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, yeah, first ones to have kids. Exactly. So, you know, we're Jody and I are both the oldest, and so yeah, have the kids, and so we're around. So everybody has an opinion, wants to tell you how everybody, you know, did it. And again, we're not against having the opinions. We're just saying there's these voices. But Jody and I were in agreement. We came together, and we had this, you know. We were criticized early on, very early on, that we are too tough on our kids. And later in life, some people would come back and say, you know what, after we see how your kids turned out and how some of the other kids, you know, maybe did or didn't turn out, that we think that you guys did the right thing. Like, well, I'm glad we didn't listen then early on when we were being too tough on the kids. Then who knows what the outcome would have been. Again, I'm not saying any of my nieces and nephews are bad, or that's not what we're saying. And we're just saying there's a benefit to coming together and sticking to your thing. And this was our thing when it came to discipline. I was one strike, and if you didn't listen, you were going to get a spanking. And here's the thing: is spankings does not equal discipline. Okay, it does not equal discipline. And here's what happens. Let's say Madison was acting up, and I said, Madison, you need to stop that. I gave her one chance. She didn't stop it. So now the second chance, Madison, I told you to stop that. Now my voice is, I'm getting a little more serious. I told you to stop it. This is the second time. And she just looks at me. No, you're not going to stop it. Third, you do that one more time, Madison, you're going to get a spanking. That's third time. You still didn't do nothing, Mom, Dad, right? So then she does it again and then breaks something, or something bad happens. So now you get up and you go over there out of frustration and you spank the child. Did the spanking equal discipline in that scenario? No, it did not. You got frustrated. You gave them a spanking out of frustration. And what you did is you established the second time, when you didn't do anything, you now said, you don't have to listen to me until the fourth time I say something, because that's when I will actually take action. So now, subconsciously, you have established a line with your child that they get up to strike 4 before they have to listen to you. Now, what's the benefit of that? What's the consequences of that? Okay, so now, you know, you're like, I'm not going to spank the kid. Oh, it doesn't matter. You put him in timeout. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Timeout does not equal discipline. Whatever your situation, if you don't do it on the first time, that's where discipline. Remember, I said undisciplined parents.
Which I remember. So I do remember us having conversation about that. When you say one chance, like maybe not when we were super small, but I feel like as we got up there, it was a one chance and then the spanking.
Correct. Yeah.
So I just want to clarify, like you would be like, stop doing that. And
right.
If we didn't stop, it would be like then.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's right. Like,
yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would be like, Madison, stop. And if you stop, there's no issue.
Right.
You listen to me. But then if you look at me and then you turn and do it again, now you defy. Yeah, that's a defiance. You have just pushed the boundary that I have established. Okay. And that's where the discipline comes in. This is where, in my opinion, the parenting comes in. You've established a boundary. And this is about a boundary in life. So now I'm teaching Madison, not just with me, if her mother says something, tells her one time to do something, you should listen. When you go to school and your teachers tell you one time to do something, you should listen. Wherever you're invited, if a babysitter comes over, if we take you over to aunt or uncle's house or grandma's house, they should only have to tell you one time. So I am establishing a boundary. Now, why else is that important? Is it just because I have an ego and I need to be in charge and control of my kids? No, that's not what it is, because now here's what happens. Now, Madison, I've established that Madison doesn't have to listen to me until the fourth time, until I get frustrated and angry, right? And they know they don't have to listen to me until They know when I'm going to start being serious. And then they, oh, okay, I'm stopping. They know where that boundary is. So now kids are out playing in the yard. Ball goes out into the street. Cars coming down the road. Madison, stop. Oh, I don't have to listen. That's strike one. I'm going to keep running. Madison, stop. There's number two. Next thing you know, they're in the middle of the street with a car slamming on its brakes. So because you didn't establish a boundary, they go to put their hand on the hot stove. Stop, Madison, stop. I don't need to listen. You've already trained them in these other environments. They're in the store, wherever it's at. They're putting themselves into harm's way, and you're going to start injuring them. You've already trained them that they don't need to listen to you until the fourth time, until you're really serious about it. But for me, when I would talk with them, they would go to try to, maybe I remember there was one time some glass had broken, something had fallen on the floor, glass everywhere. Madison, stop. Stops. Why does she stop? Because that's a boundary that I have established with her. We have a discipline. She now listened to me, and we now didn't have to go get stitches because she walked through the broken glass and got hurt and blood everywhere. I mean, there's numerous times we would go through this and we just have to, no, stop, don't go there. They would listen. So there's pros and cons to doing that. And if you don't establish those boundaries, again, later in life, we'll talk about that in other episodes, those consequences get worse later on in life. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just remember too, back to, you said the family and being too tough and stuff like that. And I'd love for you to comment on how it can be tougher and more emotional to do the discipline things in public because of like the appearance of it might give on you guys. Will you touch on that?
Yeah, it is really tough. I mean, so it's easy to just cave in, especially you're at a restaurant and the kid's acting up and, just throwing a fit because they're not getting their own way. And I tell them, stop. And they now, this is the test is on. We're in public. It's like, oh, now what are you going to do? We're in public. All right, let's go. We're going into the bathroom. So I would take them into the bathroom and they'd get a SWAT and we'd have a little talk and, establish that boundary. And so then you're in a restaurant. It's not convenient. I don't want to take the child into the restroom.
I also remember one of the things too, with discipline and stuff like that. I remember you guys always making us clean up wherever we went, which isn't always what happens with parents. I don't necessarily remember like the actual cleaning up and stuff, but I remember that if we made a mess, we had to take responsibility and also clean it up. And you guys, like, if we had an attitude about it or something, like that was something that you guys made us do. And that can also be a very inconvenient thing for parents to come and help their kids clean up, or it's much more convenient to just leave the mess to the grandparents or to whoever else. And so maybe chat on that, like discipline a little bit too.
Yeah. And again, we wanted to establish some, I don't know if I want to say rules, but we wanted to establish some respect items with our kids. So if they would go over and make a mess, we expected them to clean up. And oh, that's okay, we can get it. Or no, they need to learn that if they make a mess, they can't just leave it. There's an element of teaching responsibility that goes with that. And so there's little things by making them do certain things that it teaches responsibility. It teaches work ethic. And so we would always try to make sure that we implemented some of those things. So quick question for you. Yeah. I just got done talking about giving spankings and doing this stuff. And again, when we talk about spankings, I mean, for me, it was a one SWAT done. That's it. That's all I had to do. Yeah. We're not talking about, and I get it. There's a lot of abuse out there. We're not talking about multiple, these are people that give spankings out of frustration. Yeah. Okay. So when you can use that as a form of discipline when you can use that as a form of discipline and be controlled, you're not doing it out of frustration. Now you're in control of the situation. You're in control of your emotions and you're doing it out of discipline. You're disciplining out of discipline. And so it's very powerful when you do it that way. You're in charge, you're in control, and it teaches the kids the boundaries. So that was the first thing that we'd always want to teach, is who's the boss. But do you remember these spankings? What do you remember about on the topic of yeah.
Yeah, spankings. I can't say that I remember how many I got. I can't say that I remember like the spankings or feeling the pain or whatnot. I mean, I think I do remember the process. You would make us go sit in our room and you would make the anticipation build a little bit first. And so you gave us some time at the beginning. We had to think, like, we thought about what we did before you came in there. And then I remember that afterwards there was a conversation to it. But I don't remember the actual spanking. I don't remember any of I just remember the process of going to my room. And if it was multiple kids that messed up, then we would all go to our separate rooms and you would visit us one at a time. So, but I just remember the process of there being a conversation at the end too. But that was more into the probably 4 to 8 year old
Yeah.
stage.
So yeah, we'll cover a little bit more of that. And yeah.
Which I'm getting too ahead. So I would say the like 2, 3 year old, I don't remember those. I didn't even remember the process at that point. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time, my kids threw a tantrum one time, the first and only time. We dealt with it right away. That was it. And never had a tantrum from any of them. All 3 of them never had a tantrum. We took care of it one time, first time. Like, no, we established a boundary. It's not happening again. And didn't happen. We did not deal with tantrums, and it makes me cringe. You walking through the store, the restaurant, and the kids arching their back and squirming all around and flopping on the ground. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And we didn't deal with that. We took care of it. So we established, the first thing, is who's the boss? Because remember I talked about the dominion thing.
Yeah.
And so, we would establish that, look, this isn't my house, and I'm in charge. Mommy's in charge. We established that. Even Michael today, you ask him who's the boss, and he knows that daddy's the boss. And it's special needs kid. It's, that'll be a story for another time. But
Yeah.
the other thing we wanted to establish, like I mentioned in the topic of discipline, is no. So sometimes kids can't always get what they want. And so it's just a matter, sometimes we just have to say no, just to see what would happen, and just establish that, no, we're not going to do that right now. And so we'd have our own later, the no meant more later on the later ages, but early on in this, infant, and I say not infant, I'm talking a 1, 2 years old, 2 to 3 year old. This is where the attitudes and stuff really start to show, and really the defiance really starts to show. And so we established who's in charge, who's the boss, and then we also established some sharing. I see a lot of kids, this is mine, and
I'd love for you to share too, because that we started. What's cool about all of this right now is like I help out with kids, I babysit, like, so some of the things and like that I see nowadays, I'm like, oh wow, that kid didn't share, or wow, that kid's like throwing a tantrum or something. Like, we actually get to come back and talk about it. And I'm like, okay, so like, what did you guys do with us? Like, what happened there, and stuff like that. So that's been a really cool thing in this season, is that I kind of get to go back and learn in that way, and kind of understand the process of what you guys did when I was little. But one of the conversations we had was on mine, and would you share on why you would take the toy away, or say that no, it's not yours?
Yeah. And
If you remember what I'm talking about.
yeah, we would just, again, every time we would go somewhere, that we go over to, again, we spend a lot of time at the family's house, so they go over, and there's always one toy that 2 kids fight over, right? And so we just wanted to teach the concept of sharing, and so we go over and you'd be like, oh, mine, this is mine, and then there's an argument over there. So we're like, look, if it's that important, just let them have it. go find something else to play with. And so we're like, we just wanted to teach a preference. So if there was a fight, an argument about the toy, that, and this is again, biblically speaking, the Bible says that agree with your adversary quickly. Okay. And so when there's a conflict, oh, this is mine. Okay, here you go. So now they want to fight. The other one wants to fight over mine. And now there's a fight and a tug of war, and who's going to win? Now it's this battle again, right? But if you teach again, okay, here, and I would reward them. Like, okay, you gave that away, so now I'm going to reward you. I remember there's several times that I would take you out and I would buy you something special because you demonstrated that act of giving. And so we just wanted to teach sharing so that there was no conflict. But sure enough, there you'd be playing, and then you give this toy. Okay, fine. Then you go play with another toy. Well, guess what happens? They want that one too. So now, it becomes an issue where now we're going to talk to the other brother, sister, sibling, whatever. Look, Madison's playing with this. She's going to keep playing with this because she already gave us 2 toys away, but now it's a third one. We got to put a stop to this. Yeah. Okay. And so we just wanted to make sure that there was no more, this animosity, that we could teach them to, okay, here, give, let them have it. Then you go find something else to play with. It instills this creative brain too, where, okay, I want this, I'm going to play with it, or who was playing with it first? So now there's a battle between the siblings. Oh, my kid was playing with it. Okay, here, just take it then. Fine.
Yeah. I also want to share another point on that you shared with me. And it was the whole the mind concept. And I remember us talking and having a conversation much later on, not in the moment, but later on, and you saying, I actually took the toy and said, no, this is mine. If it was between me and like my sibling, you'd be like, no, this is mine. And then we would talk about, okay, so like, why did you teach us that? And the whole concept of nothing is ours, technically. Everything that we have on this earth, the Lord has given us. And so it's not ours to begin with. And so the whole like tithing concept and all of that. And so you were really instilling that in us at a young age, and it followed us as we kind of got older. And even at restaurants when we were older, you'd be like, can I have this? And we're like, sure, like you paid for it. So just that concept also I thought was really good and important, that you would teach us at such a young age, even if it didn't necessarily correlate at the time, but just the fact that you would take it and it's actually mine. And so
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Sometimes you forget that's a very important lesson right there. And yeah, so early on it was important, if we're at home, and brother and sister are fighting now, mine. And so I take it away. I said, no, this is mine. I bought it. I paid for it. I'm letting you use it. And so, yeah. And then later when comprehension would grow, then we would transition that into, look, God gave us this stuff. It's not ours.
Yeah.
So now we need to share it. And so helping them understand that concept, so when they look at each other, they're sitting there fighting over this thing. No, that's mine. No, that's mine. I said, no, it's mine. Well, what happened? I've already established that I'm the boss, right? I've already established, you get a one chance with me. Yeah. So now it's about teaching life lessons. It's not about control. It's not about, I have to be right. It's about setting these boundaries and balances for future life lessons. And that we have to instill those at an early age.
Yeah. And I think it's good too that you mentioned that we'd actually get rewarded for giving, because I know that we got rewards, like, and we will talk about that later on, because like middle school, high school age, like we'll remember, those are things I do remember you doing. So I can't wait to talk about more of those.
Yeah.
But in order to wrap up, like, give any final thoughts, any things that we haven't like talked about or covered through this like early kids age.
Yeah, I would just encourage, new parents to, there's a lot of voices out there. And again, I'm not saying our way was right, and really quick, one thing as we wrap up on this is one point I wanted to make out. is on the topic of discipline. There's some of you may remember this or heard this show called Super Nanny. And I would watch Super Nanny, and I'm just like, how in the world, like Super Nanny doesn't spank the kids. And I mean, but she can go into an environment and get these kids to obey. And the underlying tone was discipline. She was consistent. She disciplined. She was a disciplined person who came into an undisciplined environment and helped bring order out of the chaos and helped bring discipline and taught the parents discipline. So out of everything, again, our journey was spankings. That's what we did. Right or wrong, that's what we did. Today, there's a lot of other information. You don't have to choose that route. There's a lot of but the key underlying point is parents become disciplined. Your children will not remember what they are dealing with up until the age of 3, up until the age of 3, maybe even as early as 5 years old. I don't know, but your children will not remember this. It is important that you set this foundation, build this culture early on. They won't remember it. Okay, but if you don't do it, it's going to get worse. The boundaries that are pushed at 3 are not the same boundaries that are pushed at 8, that are pushed in high school. At some point in after high school, when they still want to push the boundaries, then society has a way of having the police take care of what you didn't establish in this child through their life. So we have a responsibility to raise responsible kids. And I would just encourage you, set aside the emotion of your upbringing and talk with your spouse and just see just get on the same page. Figure out what you're going to do, whether it conflicts with your past or not. Don't get sucked into the emotion, because if the kids, I tell you, they can sense it. They will over dramatize the crying because they know it's getting to you. They will overemphasize whatever it is because, again, they understand what's going on. They want to have their will and their way. It's a matter of willpower that's happening right here. So you can't get sucked into the emotion of the moment with your kids. Oh, they're going to hate me because I said no. I took the toy away. I did this or I did that or whatever. I gave them a spanking, whatever the case may be. My kids are going to hate me. See, now that's the issue that's internal. So now you're basing their future on how you feel inside, something that maybe needs to be addressed internally. Now we're making those decisions out of that emotion and not out of what might be best for the child, for their future. So I would just encourage you to just spend some time evaluating those foundations. And again, take what we're saying as a voice and just compare it to some of the other voices out there and establish your own way of whatever you decide to do. Just be consistent with it. That's all I'm saying. Whatever it is, be consistent, be in agreement with your spouse on how you're going to do this.
Yeah. And I just want to again point out the fact that I really cannot remember the amount of times you took a toy away from me. I don't even remember the kind of toys I had, except for my Barbies and Build-A-Bear. I don't even remember the amount of times you spanked me. Like those things, that's so important. I'm not lying for the sake of just making you feel good right here, because we will point out the things that I do remember. And so I just want to reiterate that when your child is 22 years old and if you're doing it out of discipline, truly, and doing it for their best interest, they're not going to remember the painful couple moments.
Right. And I mean, what do you guys remember? If you're listening, what do you remember at 2 and 3 years old? I personally don't remember 2 and 3 years old. I know I got whoopings. I don't remember them.
Yeah.
Don't remember them.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's part 1 of our parenting series. Next series, we're going to talk, we're going to step it up into age group because things change. A lot of things change when you go from, what are we doing?
Like 1 newborn to 3.
Yep, that's today. And then next one
will be about 4 to 8 years old.
48 years old. 4 to 8 years old.
48 years old.
Yeah.
We're going to jump right to that. No. 4 to 8 years old. Yeah. But we'll see you next time on our part 2 of this parenting series.
Yep. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks so much for joining us today on the Legacy Builders podcast. Make sure to share this episode with your friends and family, and remember, today is a great day to start building your legacy.